3 days into helping my mom downsize after my stepdad passed away, I broke down talking to my sister. That's what 100 bags, endless decisions, emotional exhaustion will do to you. Now, I get messages like this every week, and I have a heart for it. Here's one from Lisa in Phoenix. And she says, Weldon, my dad passed away 2 months ago, and my mom can't manage the house alone anymore. She's been there for 40 years. I live 3 hours away. My brother thinks we should sell immediately, and my mom doesn't want to throw anything away. I have no idea where to even start. How do you help aging parents downsize without losing your mind or your family relationships? Holy smokes, that last part, that is big because it is stressful and the family relationships, they will be tested. And that's what nobody warns you about. Lisa, look, I lived through your exact situation as you're describing it. And as a project management professional, a military veteran for 20 plus years, and I've guided hundreds of families through major life transitions, I still almost broke. That emotional weight that I mentioned, it is real and it's unavoidable. But there is a strategic framework that makes it manageable. And so today, I'm going to give you the 5 things you need to know before even starting the downsizing process. This is the preparation phase. Get this right and everything else becomes easier. Get it wrong and you're setting yourself up for conflict, exhaustion, and costly mistakes. So with that, let's get into it because here's the first thing most adult children get wrong. They think that having the conversation is the hardest part. I got news for you. It is not. Having the conversation, that's important. You need to address downsizing before a crisis forces your hand. But I learned the hard way. The conversation without action, that just creates more anxiety. My mom and I, we had talked about downsizing in one way or another for months before my stepdad passed. We discussed the house. It was already starting to be too big. The maintenance was starting to become overwhelming and all the logical reasons that you could think of. But we never took the next step, which was actually planning and talked about what that would look like. Then he passed away and we went from conversation to crisis mode in 48 hours. All those months of talking, they amounted to nothing because we hadn't built any forward momentum whatsoever. And here's what I should have done differently. After that conversation, I should have scheduled a follow-up meeting with specific action items, not vague ideas, actual tasks with deadlines. Now, that assumes that she was on board in the first place, which she was. It just was no follow-through. And those tasks? Call the estate attorney by Friday. Tour 2 apartments next month just to see what your options are out there. Start sorting one room at a time this weekend. Not to move, just to practice the emotional muscle of letting go. Because there's the reality that we all have to work with. Your parent can agree intellectually that downsizing makes sense while still being emotionally paralyzed to take action. That was our situation. The conversation opens the door, but action items, that helps create the momentum. And again, that assumes that the folks, your teammate, your parent in this case, wants to do this. They recognize the value in doing it. Because if you wait for your parent to initiate the next steps on their own, you're going to be waiting for months or perhaps years until something forces the issue. And by that time, it's just too late. So a fall, a healthcare scare, a death, don't let crisis be your deadline. Now, the conversation, that starts the process again, but scheduled action items, that's what actually help move it forward. All right, quick sidebar. If you're already feeling overwhelmed and you haven't started yet, book a free 30-minute transition strategy call. We're going to identify the challenges that you're likely going to face, separate facts from assumptions, and I'm going to give you the questions to ask your CPA, your estate attorney, your financial planner. That way, once you understand what your life transition goals are, you get the right wealth team on your side, and then we focus on the real estate after that. Link, it's in the caption below. Love to talk to you. Okay, point 2, and this one would have saved me a lot of pain. You can't do this alone, and more importantly, you shouldn't try. When my stepdad passed and we had to move my mom quickly, I thought, I'm the professional. I've guided hundreds of families through this. I've got frameworks. I can handle it. And technically, I did handle it. We got it done. But the emotional and physical toll, that almost broke me because I was trying to be everything at once: the project manager, the emotional support, the decision maker, the estate coordinator, the real estate consultant, the person keeping my mom calm while processing my own grief, and then moving all this stuff on top of it. That is way too many roles for one person, even a professional. And here's the strategic approach that I now recommend to every family. Identify your professional team before you start the physical downsizing process, not during, but before. First, what I recommend is call an estate attorney, not a realtor, not a moving company, an estate attorney. Because if your parent has been in that house for 20, 30, 40 years, there are legal considerations you need to address before you sell or move anything. Then ask yourself, does your parent have a power of attorney documents in place? What about a trust? How is the house titled? These questions need answers before you list the property. Second, get connected with their CPA or find one if they don't have one already. If your parent is selling a home that they've lived in for decades, there are tax implications that can cost or save you tens of thousands of dollars depending on how you handle them. The timing of the sale, that matters. The way the proceeds are distributed, that matters. Talk to the CPA first. Now, third, and only third, then you talk about real estate execution. Most families, they skip steps 1 and 2 and go straight to calling a realtor because they feel like that is progress. It's actually a massive mistake in my book. Get the legal and financial foundation first, then execute the real estate. All right, point 3. You need to understand which life transition is driving this decision because the strategy changes completely depending on the answer. I work with a framework called the 12 Ds of life transitions, and these are the major life events that typically trigger real estate decisions. For downsizing specifically, you're usually dealing with one of 4 of them. It's either a death, difficulties like health issues, dreams like retirement planning, or simply downsizing because the house has become too much to maintain. My mom's downsizing was driven by 2 Ds simultaneously: death and difficulties. When my stepdad passed away and the house was too big for her to manage alone, that combination created urgency and emotional complexity that required a specific approach. But here's why identifying the driving transition matters strategically. If it's death-driven, you're dealing with grief layered on top of logistics. Timelines, they're often urgent, 30 to 90 days in many cases. You're in triage mode, making decisions fast while everyone is emotionally raw. If it's difficulties with health declining, you might need to factor in some accessibility requirements for that next home. Single-floor living, for instance, or proximity to medical care. Possibly assisted living options versus independent apartments. If it's dreams, your parents, they're healthy and they're planning retirement to a new location. You have the luxury of time. 12 to 18 months to plan, optimize taxes, tour different markets, execute everything strategically. Of course, that's a perfect world. The transition type, though, that determines your timeline, your priorities, and your execution strategy. Don't treat all downsizing the same way. A death-driven crisis move requires completely different tactics than a planned retirement location. Identify the driving transition first, then build your timeline and strategy around that reality. Now, point 4, this is the emotional breakthrough that changed everything for us. Your parent isn't attached to the item. They're attached to the memory of the item and what it represents. And once you understand that distinction, everything else gets easier. My mom had boxes and boxes of my dad's things, or my stepdad's things. His clothes, his tools, things from his military service, random items that seemed completely meaningless to me, but clearly mattered to her. I couldn't understand why she was holding on to a broken lamp or a stack of old magazines. Here's what I learned though, and it was an empathy moment. When I pushed her to let go of those items, it felt to her like I was asking her to let go of him. That's not what I was doing, but that's what it felt like emotionally. Every item in that house was connected to a memory. The broken lamp, that was the lamp that he read under every night that they were together. The old magazines, those were from a trip that they had taken together. To me, that was all clutter, but to her, they were anchors to her life with her husband. So we shifted the approach entirely. Instead of, you need to get rid of this, and really I should say I shifted the approach entirely because I cared about our relationship, it became, let's honor the memory, then decide about the item. So what we did is we took photos of meaningful items before donating them. Not everything, that would have taken forever, but the items that clearly had emotional weight. The photo preserved the memory even when the item left. We created a small memory box about the size of 3 plastic storage bins just for items she wasn't ready to part with. Not to use, not to display, just to have. Permission to keep a small collection of things that represent an entire life. And most importantly, we let her talk about the stories connected to each item as we sorted. That changed so much. Because once she could honor the memory out loud, tell the story, feel heard, letting go of the physical item became manageable. Let's talk the strategic principle. You're not decluttering. You're helping your parent transition emotionally. The items, they're just the surface. The real work is actually acknowledging what those items represent and giving your parents space to grieve, remember, and then choose. Don't rush this part. If you rush the emotional process, your parent will resist every decision thereafter. If you honor the emotions first, though, the physical decluttering follows naturally. And point 5, ideally, strategic downsizing takes 12 to 18 months from first conversation to moving day. But most families, they really just don't have that kind of timeline. We certainly didn't. If you're planning ahead, if your parent is healthy, no crisis is forcing the issue, you're being proactive. Take the full timeline, the full 12 to 18 months. Here's what that timeline would give you, though. Months 1 through 3, have the conversations. Tour housing options. Get a feel for what's available and what your parent actually wants. Months 4 through 6, engage the professional team. A state attorney, CPA, CFP, understand the legal and financial landscapes. Months 7 through 12, that's where you start the physical sorting process, one room at a time. No rush. Let emotions process naturally. And then months 12 through 18, execute the real estate transaction. List when the market is optimal. Move when everything is ready. That's the ideal. That's how you do this without destroying yourself or your family relationships. But if you're in crisis mode like we were, you're looking at 30 to 90 days and the strategy shifts completely. In crisis mode, you're doing triage. Keep the essentials for daily living. Keep the high-value sentimental items, but be ruthless about what qualifies. Keep important documents and financial records. Everything else, donate, sell, or dispose of it quickly. You simply just don't have time to sort every box, photograph every item, sell furniture at optimal prices. You're moving fast and preserving what matters most. Here's the key decision point. If your parent is over 70, if the house is clearly too big, if health is starting to decline, start the process now while you still have time. Don't wait for the crisis, because the crisis downsizing is brutal for everyone involved. We made the physical move in 7 days, but there was way more emotions thereafter, for months thereafter, in fact, years thereafter. I wish I had have started earlier, before my stepdad had passed away. Then we could have all planned together, but it didn't work out that way. Helping aging parents downsize, that's one of the most emotionally complex transitions that you'll ever navigate. There's no way around this reality, in my opinion, when you have an existing and loving relationship. But you don't actually have to figure it out alone. Here's how I work with families. Successful transitions actually require 3 different teams for 3 different phases. Phase 1 is what we call life. That's where I come in as your strategist. We're going to identify what type of transition you're navigating and map out the known challenges that are there and that you're likely to face. And we're going to separate the facts from the assumptions and create a plan to actually achieve your goal. This is project management applied to your life transition. Then phase 2. This is where we bring together your CPA, your estate attorney, and a certified financial planner. They handle this phase. I'm not here to replace them, but I give you the questions to ask and the concepts to explore with each of them. I'm not replacing your professional team. Again, I'm just making sure that you show up prepared. And then phase 3, that's when we focus on the real estate. When it's time to execute, that's an entirely different team altogether. Whether you're in Colorado Springs or anywhere in the country, I connect you with someone from my nationwide referral network who's tailor-made for your specific situation. What I recommend is for you to book a free transition strategy call at askweldonhobbs.com or just look in the caption below. I'm Weldon Hobbs. I'm a transition strategist and a real estate professional based in Colorado Springs, but I work with families nationwide. Today, we covered the preparation phase, the 5 things that you need to know before you start. But there's a whole other set of mistakes that happen during the actual downsizing process, including a financial mistake that cost my family about $15,000. That's the next video, the 5 costly mistakes to avoid when you're actually executing the downsize. I'll break down the sibling coordination issues that destroy families, the financial considerations most people miss, and exactly when it makes sense to hire professionals versus handling it yourself. What I recommend is to subscribe so you don't miss any of the videos that I come out with. I do this on a weekly basis, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.